Welcome back, everybody, to the second part of our Nightmare on Elm Street discussion. I'm the Reverend Dr. Death, and joining me is Llareyna. To this part of the episode, we're discussing the queer sequel, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge from '85. Tagline is, "The man of your dreams is back."
Oh, boy.
And that has all kinds of meaning when you start breaking down this movie.
The man of your dreams is in your back.
In more ways than one.
Oh,
Directed by Jack Shoulder, as we've discussed previously, who did Alone in the Dark before this. Written by David Chaskin, who did the screenplay, and then based on characters by Wes Craven. Music by Christopher Young. Made for a budget of $3 million. It made $30 million. So
still killing it.
Still respectable.
Yes, but how did they they got a slightly higher budget. I wonder if they wanted the budget to be just that, if they were able to just do it in that budget, or if they're like, you're given this and that's all you fucking get. They only got $1.2 million.
I think they were literally just like, if the first movie can be made for this, we're going to give you slightly more,
yeah,
and then do this,
and they did it. So, maybe it didn't kill as hard as the first movie, but still fucking good.
Mark Patton is playing Jesse Walsh, who is one of our only final boys that we will ever discuss. You could probably, we're not going to be discussing this season. You could probably throw Ash in there as a final boy, but
yeah, final man.
Yeah, Ash would be a final man in that case, but and then Mark was known for is not known for, and there's a reason for this. He basically quit Hollywood for a good long while and then came back only in recent years. But he does have listed to his credits Amityville Clown House, Reunion from Hell 2, and then One Dead Dog, as some of the movies that he was in.
I don't like that title.
No, I didn't think that you would. Not at all. Of course, we have Robert Englund back playing Freddy in this one. He is a little bit different in this movie. He doesn't necessarily kill people in their sleep in this one, which is why it's the double entendre with the queer sequel comment. It's weird because this is the Freddy movie that all of his kills are in the real world. Through the use of Jesse,
yes.
basically.
Okay.
Marshall Bell plays Coach Snyder. He was in the Rum Diary with Johnny Depp.
Oh, God.
Starship Troopers, Stand By Me, and then Total Recall. Robert Russler plays Ron Grady. He was in Weird Science, and then Sometimes They Come Back. He was in Weird Science the same year that this movie came out, which was a good year for him, I guess.
And Sometimes They Come Back is a really good fucking movie. I like it anyways.
Yeah, it's a pretty good Stephen King movie. It's one of those. It's funny because Sometimes They Come Back is about revenge ghost, which is hilarious given the fact that's what Freddy is basically.
Yeah, kind of sad we didn't get to review that and ghost season a little bit because I don't know. I can't see it fitting anywhere else.
We've talked about doing a King season, Stephen King himself, so it would definitely fit within that realm. It's got every King trope you could imagine. Greasers, 50s references. The man is a product of his time.
Yes.
Kim Myers is playing Lisa Weber, Jesse's girl.
Shut up.
I wish I had Jesse's girl. She was in Hellraiser Bloodline, was the only other horror movie to her name, though. Sydney Walsh is playing Carrie Hellman. She was actually in Point Break with our boy Keanu. And then Twilight Zone in the 1980s version. She was in one episode of that. And then we have the illustrious Clu Gulager playing Mr. Walsh, who is mostly known for his great role in Return of the Living Dead. He was also recently in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and he was in the Feast trilogy, which we will cover at some point in Creature feature season.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I didn't mention it last episode or last part of this episode, but my favorite thing Freddy related is that in Critters 2, which will also be, creature feature season. There is one of the characters is an alien that can change his physical form, and he goes through most of the movie without picking one. And the one time he decides to pick a form, he's standing in front of a cutout of Freddy, because both, Critters was a New Line movie.
Yeah.
And he starts to change into it, and then Charlie walks up in front of him. He's like, no, you don't want to be that. And he like holds the pin up in front of him, so he changes back to a hot female. So.
Yeah.
It would just been really cool to see actually Robert Englund pop up for like a split second that movie just to play that part. But synopsis: Jesse is going through changes. He is finding that the man within him just wants to come out and satisfy urges that he is unwilling to admit that he has. Will his caring but naive girlfriend be able to help him, or will Jesse have to keep a part of himself buried deep within so that he doesn't become ostracized from all the normal people around him? School buses or rides to living hell, poolside barbecues become a death trap, and gay sexual innuendo abounds in this movie.
Yes, lots of burnt weenies in this too, literally.
Literally, of all kinds. Body count significantly higher than the last one. 10 people counted, 14 non-counted.
Nice.
We have Coach Schneider slashed across the back with finger knives. Ron Grady is stabbed through the torso with finger knives. Pool partier 1 is slashed. Pool partier 2 is boiled. So is pool partier 3. Pool partier 4 is burned. Pool partier 5 is trampled. Pool partier 6 is stabbed. And then the would-be negotiator, the guy who walks up, who's just like, "Hey man, can I help you out?" He is, for his, some good Samaritan ways, is slashed, thrown into the and then thrown into the grill. So another burnt weenie. And then we have Carrie, who is stabbed through the back with finger knives. Non-counted deaths in this movie are the 2 parakeets. They are eaten and burst into flames. And then Jesse Walsh has an unknown fate at the end of the movie. And then so is Lisa, trapped on the bus going to who knows where out in the desert, possibly hell.
I mean, that ride looked so fun.
With Freddy just laying on the gas and
do you see that bus bouncing? Dude, that shit would have been legit. They should have made a ride out of that.
That is definitely something I could see based upon the ride that they have both King Kong, at least in Orlando, King Kong and the Fast and the Furious, which is literally you just be on a bus and it bouncing around. The Freddy version of that would have been so much cooler.
Aww.
Quotes, Lisa, speaking to Jesse, who's doing this to you? It's Fred Krueger. He's inside me, and he wants to take me again.
Yes, he does.
Lisa, no, Jesse, this is not happening. It's got to be everything you've taken in. Schneider, the diary, the glove, only it's all mixed up. And then Jesse's like, Christ, what do I have to do to make you understand me? Last night, he made me try and kill my sister. I'm deliberately putting these quotes in here, folks, because if you can't read it's not even subtext at this point. If you can't read or listen to what I just said and get out of it what, is coming across, then there's no help for you. I don't know.
Let me spell it out for you. Freddy is the gayness trying to make its way out and in. In and out. How did they fit the diary?
Yeah. How did in the glove? I mean, I hope they took the knives off. That's all I'm going to say. Lisa Weber, I wish you would talk to me. We can figure it out. We can figure it out together. Jesse, there is nothing to figure out. And then Ron butting in with a mouthful of food. I don't know why you're wasting your time with this guy. He's a basket case. And then Jesse, of course, responding back, shut up, Grady.
Yeah.
And then Freddy runs the knives of his gloves over Jesse's head. Not that head, though, folks. I need you, Jesse. We've got special work to do here, you and me. And then he slams Jesse against the wall, slowly tilting his head to him. You've got the body. Takes his hat and digs his own fingers into his skull, and I've got the brain.
Which is a lyric in the Will Smith and DJ Jazzy Jeff song.
But look at the context of that scene.
I know.
You've got Freddy caressing Jesse. He's telling you, he's like, I need you. He's like, and you got the body. Oh my God. Jesse Walsh. Hey, Grady, do you remember your dreams? Ron Grady, only the wet ones.
Yes. That was funny. And then they got in trouble again or no talking. Like, oh my God. And they didn't even, that was like not a scene that was even needed. But yet they still kept it there.
Exactly. There was no reason for that. There was a lot of that in this movie. The two of them sweaty, hot, just out together, like,
Lots of butts in this movie, guys. So there's no, I guess you can count best boobs in this movie because we do get really good side boob in this.
I've got a best boobs for this when we get to it.
Okay.
But it's not what you're thinking.
Oh, okay. Because I'm like, well, I had one too.
Well, who was the side boob in this movie? Was it Lisa or?
Yes.
Okay.
Because when they're not quite doing, you can tell his gayness is getting to him, and he's not even keeping it up. So, and he walks away from the sex.
when they're rolling around the floor.
Yes.
Yeah.
We get some decent boob, but there's more than anything in this movie, you can pick out a best butt scene because there's a lot of butts in this. A lot of guy butts, a lot of gay butts, okay?
Yeah. And I might throw that in as like a little side thing when we get down there to that point.
Down there.
Lisa Weber. Sometimes when I'm lying here in bed, I can see Glenn. She's quoting from the Nancy's journal. I can see Glenn in the window across the way getting ready for bed. His body is slim and smooth, and I know I shouldn't watch him, but that part of me that wants him forces me to. That's when I weaken. That's when I want to go to him. Jesse immediately. Can I see that? No context there, folks. Begins to read the next page in the diary. March 15th, he comes to me at night, horrible, ugly, and dirty, under the sheets with me, tearing at my nightgown with his steel claw.
Turns real hard.
Carrie, hi, Ronnie. So going to Lisa's house tomorrow night? Ron Grady, nope, can't. I'm grounded. Carrie, how come? Ron Grady, I threw my grandmother down a flight of stairs.
What the fuck? I did not catch that.
Ron Grady, I'm just going to go ahead and say it is the best side character in this movie for sure. If it wasn't for him, this movie would be missing a lot.
Yeah, and he wasn't annoying like some of the side characters tend to be, in my opinion, sometimes.
No, there's actually an argument that he helps the movie and not just being like the comic relief, but actually being an emotional sounding board for Jesse. At times.
Yes.
Visuals for this movie, getting into the movie review of it. The deaths in this one are not as inventive because they're in the real life. The one thing that is cool though, and this visual always sticks with me, so I have to give this credit and sound that and give it its due. That bus scene at the beginning of it, when the kids are trapped on the bus, and then they get and then the sinkhole appears, and they're like teetering on like the two columns above like a hell pit or whatever. I had nightmares about that as a child.
Wow.
And it's so bad that I couldn't even remember what movie it was from. I must have seen this on late night TV or something, and then and blanked out everything but that. But for years I would have a dream where I was on a school bus that was like, and it was like about to fall into the pits of hell, and I never could figure it. And when I watched this movie again like years later, I'm like, that's where that fucking came from.
Yeah.
You know?
It was pretty well done. I mean, yes, you could tell it was from the 80s, but you can't beat something for being in the generation it was in. I'm sorry. No,
and I mean, given the budget was only $3 million, the visuals are very impressive on that bus scene, I have to admit.
Yeah, oh my God. It was there's two bus scenes, and I'm going to just say it right now, pretty fucking enjoyable.
Beginning and end, they're kind of, they bookend the movie. Another thing that I give them visually, the scene, because this movie plays out almost like a combination between a possession movie and a werewolf movie, which is funny because whenever I was watching this and given the not even the subtext as we've discussed the movie, there's this meme that's out right now and it says something about werewolves come out at night. And it shows this picture of this werewolf or out under they come out under a full moon. And there's a picture of a werewolf in the next little still of the meme that says, I'm gay.
Oh my God.
But I mean, like the scenes of this movie where like Freddy is literally ripping through Jesse's body is actually very well done.
Yes,
like,
it is.
As far as I would put it up there with some of the best werewolf films as far as like, somebody like, inhabiting or, like bursting out of somebody's body or whatever.
They actually chose, I saw too, when he was coming out of his body, that they had really good camera angles. So they showed just enough. And it's basically Freddy pulling the rest of his upper body off of him so he can make his way out. And it was just the perfect angle to where it looks like he was crawling out of the body, but realistically, he just had a prop on him that he was just basically tossing off of him, which is great for budget, but visually very well done.
Yeah, it doesn't look, real. It doesn't look hokey. It's effective in what it's trying to convey, whether the subtext or whatever's there or not.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. The one weird thing in this movie, but it still looks cool, are the demon dogs with the baby faces.
Yes, the two good boys.
With the two good boys. With the baby faces, like when they're going to investigate where the boiler room used to be at.
Yeah,
it's like it's really weird, and I don't know why it's there necessarily, but it is a cool visual in this movie.
It is a cool visual, and it was funny because when I saw the two good boys, I was like, well, first off, they're good boys because they didn't attack. Two, you could tell that these dogs were like, get this fucking mask off of me. What the fuck is going on? The
mask almost looked like that the Valentine mask from that movie that we discussed.
Cupid, yeah.
One weird thing about this movie visually, though, is that it is shot there's so many daytime scenes in this one, and they are not just daytime scenes, they are washed out daytime scenes.
Yeah.
Like it is like the highest point of and that's during the scenes where the Ron and Jesse are both sweating, and there's that whole thing. But like there's a lot of sweating men in this movie. Yes. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Sweaty and mostly naked men.
True. And they're out in the, and it's like you can tell this was like, I mean, it's got that look of being in the hottest time of like a California day or something. Like it's just completely like bearing down on you to the point it's washing out a lot of the colors of the scenery around it, and it's an odd look for a horror film. The movie doesn't really get color back in, or like a huge amount of color into it, until like the nighttime scenes, or like in particular the barbecue scene itself. There's a lot of deep blacks and reds in that scene, but but the rest of the movie feels more like bluish and washed, like bluish as far as the sky, and then washed out.
Yeah, it feels like it had a softer lens, which was kind of weird because it almost made it feel like everything was a nightmare in this movie.
Yeah, that's true. And then, like, even the scenes where Jesse is at home with Clue as his dad, and then they had almost like an 80s sitcom look to them in those scenes. The parakeets were just ridiculous. Like, that was funny. I don't understand the point of that, but we'll get into that in the trivia a little bit.
I know that they were trying to make it seem like this house was a boiler room itself. So that's what I was getting from it. And animals, specifically birds too, if they get overheated, birds are some of the fucking most temperamental creatures. Like there's certain smells that they can't have. If they eat carpet fibers, they can fucking get super sick, and like there's all kinds of weird things. They're very, I don't know. There's a reason why they're supposed to live outside, honestly, which is weird because it's more dangerous for them out there, but actually it's more dangerous for them being caged. But yeah, if it gets too hot for them, they do fucking go psycho. So
I could see that because it's the whole canary in the coal mine thing or whatever, because I mean, they're way more, they respond to changes way faster than we do. So they're like a good like litmus test of what the environment's doing. Story in this one, there's a reason that this has gone on to become like most like for the gay community, like one of their anthem movies. Like there is no better example of a man having to live like be closeted about what he is than this movie.
Yeah,
like, that is literally what this movie boils down to. I mean, it's all throughout the movie. There's a gay BDSM club in the movie. Jesse, like whenever he's interacting with his girlfriend, like she's not getting him. He's not really into her. He has more chemistry with Ron than he does with her. The coach has this weird thing at one point in the movie where it's almost like he's getting ready to rape Jesse. It's like there's a lot of this going on, and I swear to God, like the writer for this, Chaskin, there's quotes from him, and that's the whole reason that, and I'll get into that here in a few minutes, between him and the actor Mark, there was so much bad blood between them for years, because he asked him point blank, he's like, why did you write this character this way? Because the thing was, just give backstory on this, Mark Patton, this was at the height of the AIDS scare. Like, they didn't know what caused AIDS. They only knew that it was associated with gay men. And so Hollywood was doing everything they could to disassociate with gay men. Like, if you were a gay man at this time, you had to hide it.
Yeah.
So being in the closet was something they had to be to keep their jobs. And so poor Mark Patton, who is very much gay in real life, gets this movie where as he's going along, he starts realizing what the movie's really saying. And it's telling the whole world. It's like, he's gay, he's really, really gay. And like, he's like, this is what, and he goes to the guy and he's like, why did you write this? You have outed me, like, through the use of this movie. And Chaskin's like, I don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing gay about this. I don't even know I don't even know anything about that lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
You tell me as an outside, observer, Llareyna, is there any way that the guy who wrote this didn't have some inkling of like the gay lifestyle? Because it is all through this movie, like every bit of it.
And not only is it, I mean, well, I don't want to, because I'm not gay in any way, but like, gay people like this film. You said you've already mentioned that this is like their little horror film anthem, if you will.
It is. They rally behind this movie because they say that it gives them like that whole thing now about representation, but this movie really does give representation to that community because it is about their struggles.
Yeah.
Especially ones that grew up around this time and had to be closeted like Jesse was in the movie.
So with that being said, I think it's safe for me to say that everything about this comes off so gay, and the struggles that a gay person goes through, it's so blatantly. And like, this guy, if he thinks he doesn't know what gay is, maybe he actually was gay. I'm wondering if he was a closeted gay himself, and this was how he let out some of that fucking steam.
Yeah, because there's no, I agree with you 100%. There's no way that somebody wrote this with this much subtext. Just, I mean, to the point it's not even subtext. I mean, even the actor who plays Ron says that now. Like, I mean, there's a documentary about Mark Patton called Scream Queen, and it's in a different way. My personal nightmare or something like that is where my own nightmare, I think is what it's called. And he goes on about like this, about how his life was affected by the fact that, this movie outed him at a time when he really was trying to keep that hush hush.
Yeah.
And his animosity toward the writer for this, and he had reasons for it, because the writer at the time said, I don't know what you're talking about with this gay subtext, like, because even then people were like pointing it out.
Yeah.
And then later, now that it's caught on with the gay community and they're championing this movie, he's like, of course I wrote it in there. Like, he's flipped 180 degrees and saying, it's like, I was trying my best to represent, your struggle. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
It's like,
you can if you're bi.
Well, I guess you can in that sense. But what I was circling back, the actor who played Ron was like, he's like, dude, he's like, this movie is like, I mean, it's not even subtext. It's there in front of you, the entire movie, like, there's not an ounce of this movie that's not in service of that message, basically.
It's never been more appropriate to shout gay at a film than watching this film and seeing everything that was going on, which, by the way, I need you to explain to me and maybe semi-break down how the fuck, what did I miss? I missed something. I know I walked away for a second, I think, to get a glass of water, which was literally just seconds away. So I feel like I didn't miss much, but then when I came back, I feel like I missed so much. What happened that he ended up at the gay club that the teacher was frequenting, and why did the teacher take him back to the fucking locker room? What happened?
That's the best part of this movie, because I thought it was a fucking nightmare, because literally, the scenes up to that point, it shows that basically the whole entire house is becoming a boiler room around Jesse and the family, because they're living in Nancy's old house.
Yes.
And Freddy's remanifesting himself. So, Jesse wakes up in a drenched in sweat, again, another sweaty male in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he just goes straight from his home, wanders the street, and goes to the gay BDSM club. No provocation, no reason given. He just goes straight. After he's hot and bothered, he goes straight to the gay BDSM club.
And then he's found by
that removes it from subtext. It's right there in front of you.
Point. Okay, good, because I'm like, that's what I thought that happened, but I seriously thought I missed something. Now the teacher finds him.
Teacher finds him, sees that he's pouring, he's allowing somebody to pour beer for him, and he stops him. He stops Jesse from taking a drink because Jesse's underage.
Yes.
But then there's that whole creepy thing. It's like, all right, Deviant, you're coming back with me, and he's in total BDSM gear when he says this, because they've already set up early in the movie that he's been caught at a gay BDSM club. Grady mentions it, I think, or somebody around.
You're just his type.
Yeah, and so he takes him back to the school gym of all places and has him run laps in front of him, getting sweaty again, and then he's like, take a shower.
Yes,
he's like,
it's weird.
And then it's just like, I mean, you're seeing it and you're like, I don't know how anybody watched this and didn't pick this up. Like, I mean, I know as a kid I didn't, because you don't think of that thing, but you know, like literally all I remember from this movie straight up whenever I was a kid is the bus scene. That's all I've ever remembered from it.
Which is good. Well, either that or you were tormented by gay guy butts. So you were like, no.
I don't know. But then, like, you know, watching it upon, like, you know, knowing all this stuff, I'm just like, it is right there. Like,
yes.
Everything, you know, they're not hiding any of this stuff. Even like his girlfriend in this movie, she is literally the definition of a beer, like the kind that you would imagine. She's not like, she's pretty, but like not so pretty that, like, you know, that she's a knockout, and that's and she's very kind of timid and meek, and that's exactly the kind of guys that end up being, or females that end up being like beards for, you know, like guys who are trying to struggle through and kind of come to terms with their, you know, like, you know, how they, and it's just like, even that services the story in that sense, you know.
Yeah. I was almost worried for a minute, so I'm kind of glad you mentioned that the gay people do appreciate this film, which is good, because I was kind of worried for a second, because I was like, are they punishing gay people or mocking gay people in this film? But then I'm thinking, well, no, because multiple people die, not just gay people.
And the other thing too is that Jesse is a strong final girl in a sense. I mean, he does, even though he's the one that's you know, fighting the demon, you know, that's within him and that whole thing. It's, I mean, he is like, you know, he's wrestling with he's wrestling with that and throughout the movie, and like he is trying to, he's struggling to fight the monster, you know, just like any of the other, you know, final girls in any other movie. So that's another thing that they hold up from this movie, is that Jesse is a strong character that represents them, you know. Because he's, you know, like he's clearly, you know, he's not like the other guys around him, and he, you know, and all that stuff, but he, you know, he doesn't, you know, like let that, you know, basically take him out of the movie. Like he, you know, he stands up to it. So they hold that up as an icon. And the funny thing is too, something that Mark Patton was, totally horrified by for years, he actually gets celebrated for it by now, which is good for him, by the gay community, is that dance sequence in the movie.
Oh yeah, that was funny.
That really weird gay, where he's like, it's a gay dance sequence where he's sitting there and he's like, he's got like that rod and it's got like the like pops at the end or something. And he confronted the Chaskin, you know, in the video Scream Queen. That's one of the best scenes in the whole documentary. They agree to meet at Chaskin's house, and he asked him, he's like, why did you let me film this scene this way? And he's like, and then Chaskin, now to Chaskin's credit, Chaskin's like, I didn't write the scene like that. He said, all I wrote was that you danced. Yeah. He said, that was the director that let you get, that did you that way. It's like, you know, he's like, he should have been the one that called you on that and told you, it's like, hey, this is a little over the top. You might want to, you know, change what you did in that scene. And he said, and then Jesse, you know, comes to terms at that moment with that point. And he's like, you're right. He's like, everybody on that set was telling me I did a great job. And he said, that's on them, you know? Yeah. So you really feel bad watching that documentary from Mark Patton, because after this movie came out and he was completely outed, like, you know, I mean, because even his like, his representatives, like his agency, that, you know, they told him, they's like, we told you that if you wanted to get any more movies, you had to play this character Butch, and you didn't, and you can't do it, so you're going to be relegated to big characters, the side characters basically in films going forward, the ones that are, you know, kind of like, you know, just like the flamboyant out there characters. And everything else going on at the time, he completely left Hollywood. He actually moved to Mexico, and that's where he lives now. Like that, he completely left the United States.
Wow.
And it was only in recent years that he's reconnected with any of this stuff. Like, so, I mean, it's kind of tragic listening to it. Now, some of that was on him, and he admits it in Scream Queen. He's like, I let this get to me more than I should have. But and he said I should, and the funny thing was, he mentions in the documentary, this is just, I mean, I'm just bringing this up for trivia and because it's interesting about all this. He was raised by a Southern Baptist father, and his mother was a devout Catholic. So he was in that kind of situation as a child where he was clearly gay. I mean, he even admitted it. He said when he dreamed of, like, instead of, you know, like being the knight that saves the princess, he said he was the one saved by the king, not a queen, but a king, and he was the one swept off his feet. So he's always been that way. You know,
okay.
And he said that his father knew this about him, and they didn't discuss it and never would, but his father still never disowned him and still loved him. So at least he had that going for him, you know. But like whenever he moved to New York and this was in St. Louis is where he started out at. He moved to New York, got in the Broadway scene where he met others like him, and that really opened him up to all that stuff. And so then he said, of course, the first role he gets offered in Hollywood ends up being this, and it ends up being like the movie that's like at the time when you're not supposed to be. I mean, they even blood tested people on sets. That's how scared they were of AIDS. Like you know, because they didn't know what was spreading it. And then you had Fauci, you know, talking to that dumbass. Yeah. He actually came out at the time and said, if you live in the same household with somebody and breathe their air, you could catch AIDS.
Way to go, Dr. Truth and Science.
Yeah, Dr. Truth and Science, even back then, fucking everything up. So, and at the same time, like, AIDS was a big thing in that community because, like he mentions it, he said people talk about The Walking Dead now, like, you know, TV show, and he said we literally saw it amongst our community because he said 1 year before you'd see them, they'd be vibrant, healthy. He said 6 months later they looked like a skeleton, and then 6 months after that you never heard from them again and assumed they were dead. You know? Yeah,
not to mention the bed sores and the literally skin falling off and stuff. Ugh.
Oh, all kinds of stuff. He was actually his lover at the time that he made this movie was actually a very famous actor who was on, I think, The Little House on the Prairie, I believe it was, and he was dying of AIDS as this movie was being made.
Wow,
I believe is what they said. So it was a big ordeal, like the whole way around, and you did not want to be labeled as gay or be associated with it. And when they cast him in this role, there's all that in the movie, and then of course, I mean, something we'll bring up in the Death Holler Awards. He screams better than any woman.
Oh my God! In any film.
In any film, and that scream more than anything was what, you know, outed him. I mean, it really did.
It's the Ned Flanders Award, basically.
But that all goes back to like I was just saying, the wrap it back into the story. I mean, there's all that in this movie. Like it's a weird film in the sense that I get now why I understand why the community, you know, the gay community, like, champions this film, because you couldn't pick a film that like better represented any of that stuff going on at the time than this movie.
Basically, what the director said in this film was, all this, but no homo.
And it aggravated me because on the video, like, I mean, Mark goes to a convention, like the first one they've done, like, with him there. It was in Florida, and it was this big convention, and it got him, the actor played Ron, Clue was there, the one that played his dad, Robert Englund, his girlfriend in the movie, and then, of course, the director, Jack Sheldon, was there. And like he was mentioning, like in an after event, Which that's one thing I'll give Robert Englund credit. Robert Englund is the sweetest man outside of the
Oh,
series
yeah.
because he's talking about like the struggle that he saw Mark going through at the time. And like it's the most empathetic, caring individuals you could ever see just on his face. He was like,
Yeah.
I felt sorry for the kid. Like he said, I saw it as it was going on as we was filming it. And he said, but it was there. And what could you do? It was like, that's what they were paid to do was, make the movie, and it played out like it did. But he said he had friends that were gay, and he said he knew that community at the time, so that's why he had a lot of empathy, and when the two of them met, they had a really deep hug or whatever. So like they did get along, even if there was all that bad blood otherwise.
Yeah.
But he was at an after event, and he was talking to the other actors and actresses, and Jack Sheldon, the director, was there, and he's like bringing up this trauma that's going to affect him. You can understand where he's coming from. Of course, it's documentary about Mark from Mark's perspective, so it's biased in that sense.
Yeah.
But when Jack stands up to him and tells him the things he does, he almost comes off as an asshole. It's like you carried all this baggage because of your fault. It's like you could have let this go, but you didn't, and so it's your fault. You could have acted, and it's just like, and Mark doesn't call him out on it. There is a truth to it to a certain degree, and he admits it later. But the way that Sheldon says it, I'm just like, dude, I don't know why you didn't get decked for being that way. He was more of an asshole to Mark in this movie than Chaskin, and Chaskin's the one that wrote it the way that it turned out being. So
yeah.
But it's interesting. If anybody, it's on Tubi right now if you want to watch it, the documentary about this movie. But it's a very interesting backstory to all this.
Yeah.
What do you think about the acting in the movie?
A notch better than the first one. Again, kind of for the most part newer actors. Robert Englund, obviously a veteran already at this point, as so early in his career, but everyone else you still got that 80s teenager new actor vibe kind of.
You did. I think Mark stood out though as more. Of course, you might be arguing art imitating life, and that's the reason it was. But he had more of an in-depth, way of his character than anybody else in the film. The guy who played Ron was good, but he was a comic relief, and that's all he was supposed to be. I feel like the flattest one in the movie is, and I'm not meaning this in a banal tis type thing. She did have some boobs, but like his girlfriend, she's kind of like the flattest actor in the movie. Like she's just kind of there.
Yeah, she played her part well. She basically just played a beard, and you're like, she doesn't get him, but I think she does. She's just trying to get past that, like, no, that's not you. Here, let me try to entice you out of this,
Yeah, and it fits in a strange meta way. That's the way that she would be about it. The music in the movie is not as standout as the first one whatsoever. No. Like nothing stood out about the music in this movie.
No, the only music I could think of that at the time that made sense was when we saw the Babyface Dogs, the Two Good Boys. Really, and that was a very quick, spurt of music that carried on because that was a very intense scene all the way through towards the end. I guess the bus scenes too. So I don't know, but nothing that overly stood out. That's like, wow, this is amazing,
No, not like the first one at all. And you're right. The bus scenes had some, that stuff. One thing I forgot to mention that I thought was hilarious, Mark Patton, whenever he's talking about that dance scene,
yes,
he says he wished he would have did the electrocution dance that Crispin Glover did in Friday Part 4.
Oh my God.
He said at least then he would be memorized for, it wouldn't be about the gayness of how he danced, but just about how odd it was. You know?
I did recognize the song in that dance scene, though. That was a pretty popular song. I forgot the title of it now, but I knew the lyrics to the song, so.
Yeah, it was a pretty big song. That was the one thing, but besides the dancing in that scene that stood out. So.
Yeah, when I heard it, I was like, oh, I didn't know that was in this movie. It's pretty cool.
Is there anything else you want to say about the movie? That we won't. We'll get to more in the awards, but before we get into the trivia.
No. Let's get into the trivia.
Okay, so New Line Cinema originally didn't ask Robert Englund to return as Freddy and refused to give him a pay raise.
What?
A stuntman was cast as Freddy at the start of production. After 2 weeks of filming, Robert Shea realized this was a terrible lapse in judgment, fired the stuntman, hired England, and met his demands.
Good choice.
England has stated that Freddy's Revenge is his least favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and
yes.
I can understand why.
No, I'm just kidding.
I think it's mainly because the continuity, and like he doesn't even really get to be Freddy in this movie. He's more like weird, like, homosexual vibes than he is like pedophilic vibes toward Jesse than he is like actual, like, the charismatic, like, jokey Freddy or anything like that.
Yeah, because he didn't even get, actually, he did get a kiss from the girl. Freddy gets the girl in this film. He doesn't want the girl in this film, which is...
You're right, yeah. I will point this out, though. There are some... Nightmare fans who actually appreciate one thing about Freddy in this movie more than the others. He is the most vicious version of Freddy because he's more silent, and he's more about the kills than he is in any other movie.
Yeah, I will agree with that.
Makeup effects artist Kevin Yeager replaced David B. Miller, who designed the Freddy makeup for the original. Yeager only had a few pictures in the original film as reference, so he redesigned Freddy's look. Studying pictures of burn victims, he made changes to Freddy's look, namely by bringing out the facial bones. He said his intent was to make Freddy look like a male witch, and gave Freddy red and amber eyes to make him more demonic looking. And I do remember the red eyes in this standing out. So
yeah, I think he did a really good job. I mean, it was way better, but again, I'm going to restate that the first Freddy Krueger was pretty impressive considering what a small budget they had.
Something weird about that, though, meta-wise, that I just now thought about. He made the bones like stand out more so that Freddy looked more gaunt in a sense to make him more like witch-like. That's weird. That's a weird, like almost like, how like people look whenever they're wasting away from like, AIDS. That's weird that they would go that choice, and then everything else in this movie the way that it is,
Yeah, actually.
Not mentioned by anybody. It's a weird coincidence that would happen. Wells' song was added to the background music anytime Freddy was on screen, adding to the film's eerie dream feeling.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have that in our opening too. Our disclaimer.
Had this film failed, a New Line Cinema might not have survived. The movie hit big enough to finally give the studio some cash flow, and in the following years, New Line Cinema rode the Elm Street train to further successes, had a hit with another horror series, Critters, cranked out John Waters movies, and then turned into both a respectable and profitable mini major during the 90s. However, all that was uncertain back when this film was being made. Studio head Robert Shea micromanaged every aspect of the production, regularly confusing crew members by stepping over the line and offering orders which should have come from the director. That led to an understandably uneasy relationship between Shea and Jack Shoulder. On top of this, the production was remarkably rushed, slated for November 1st, 1985 release date, when the first film had only been released on November 9th of the previous year.
Damn.
As a result, tensions were high, the hours were long, and the work was hard. There was no real time to stop and second guess the direction of the film. In the Never Sleep Again documentary, Robert Englund recalls several moments during the filming, such as the pool sequence when Freddy appears to teenagers outside of their dreams, where he struggled with playing the part because so much of it felt like it was going against the rules set in the first installment.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I was very confused, and I understand that he's using some young man's body. And that was explained to me by my hubby, but I was like, I don't get it. Like, is this Freddy? Because, in my opinion, it's a possession. And if it's a possession, that means the kid's looking at this guy. They don't see Freddy, they see the kid. But they showed Freddy, so it's hard to know. Because, I mean, obviously there was the negotiator that was talking to him like, hey, man, it's okay. He wasn't scared of Freddy. And at that point, he could have actually been seeing, the kid that was possessed.
And it would probably been better if they would have showed something like that, like a quick flash, and it looked like it was Mark, but like with a glove or something. But they never actually show anything like that to give you that hint.
So it's just kind of guessing at this point, is that what was happening? I wish they had shown that because it would have made more sense, because I'm like, why is Freddy going after these kids in real life? And Noah's like, what are you talking about? He's attacking through the kid. And I'm like, okay, but is he actually free? or is he just controlling the kid? So,
yeah, because if you remember, there's one scene in the movie where Jesse's laying there, and then like he sees Freddy like jump through a window and then completely disappear, and then Freddy automatically reappears a second later in full form.
Yes.
And then attacks the pool partiers.
Yeah, so I has the confuses.
Let's see. Mark Patton, an openly gay actor, has amusingly stated that he sees himself as the first male scream queen due to the combination of factors, including the film's homoerotic subtext, the fact that he was often depicted on screen screaming like a girl, and because he viewed the character as a closeted gay man.
Yes, queen.
The line, "You've got the body, I've got the brains," was Robert Shea's idea.
Okay.
The film was extremely well received in Europe, as residents of those countries caught and loved the sexual overtones. This overseas popularity is what convinced producers to continue making sequels to the film.
Whores.
This is the only film in the series not to use Charles Bernstein's original theme or a variation of it, which is what we talked about. The music does not stand out like the others.
Boo.
In an interview featured in Search of Darkness Part 2 in 2020, Robert Englund states that he was fully aware of the homoerotic elements of the film and was enthusiastic about playing up these undertones in the on-screen interaction between Freddy and Jesse. Martin Patton says in Never Sleep Again, Elm Street Legacy in 2010 that he had to say no to some pieces of business, such as Freddy putting his blades in Jesse's mouth, that made him feel uncomfortable.
Good for you. You know?
Yeah, and that just goes to show... either between the director or the writer or a combination of both, you can't sit there and argue they didn't have something like that on their minds.
And especially, someone that has to be careful about this, and that's so sad that he had to go through that, to be honest with you, because no one that I know that, you know, whatever political side you sit on, nobody has any problem with anybody that's gay, you know?
No.
Great people, you know, they're at the end of the day, they're people. It's the ones that you question that they really are gay and that they're not just trying to be relevant of some sort and using that as, I don't know, I guess like a way into some sort of relevance, which I think is a fucking disgusting, because there's people that that really are truly gay and just want to be happy, that have struggled. And clearly this actor had gone through that. And I'm glad that he stood up for himself and said, hey, look, regardless, he maybe not have been openly gay at this point, but he's like, I'll play this character, but I'm going to say no to this. And good for fucking you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm glad that he set boundaries, even if, he didn't have enough. He couldn't. I mean, he didn't have the power at the time because he was literally just cast out of Broadway to do his first film, so he didn't have any leg to stand on with regards to demanding things to get some of the other changes made. But at least he stood his ground on that and was like, "No, I'm not doing that." You know.
Yeah.
The dance scene was meant as an homage to Risky Business in '83. Sensing impending embarrassment, Mark Patton was reluctant to film it, which resulted in being repeatedly postponed. It was initially stated in Never Sleep Again that Patton choreographed the scene himself and told the filmmakers to just roll the camera while he gave it his best shot. Patton later changed his story in an interview with Without Your Head. He states there's nothing Jesse does in the movie that's not scripted. If you look in the screenplay, it reads Jesse bumps his ass against the door 3 times and then gets on the bed and pretends to masturbate. None of that was mine. While the scene has haunted some of the involved parties for years, Patton says that it enjoyed extended popularity at gay clubs at the time.
No, that's so funny, that doesn't necessarily have to be a gay. Now, the twerking, which was hilarious. I was dying at that. I was like, okay, that's funny. That's not typical for a straight male, whatever. But the whole dancing with the stick in front, like he's pretending to jerk off or play with his wiener. The guys will fucking do that shit for no reason at all.
Yeah. There's nothing inherently gay about that.
Yeah.
You know, it's the more the ass grinding stuff that really set it off.
Oh, my God.
Robert Russler auditioned for the role of Ron Grady as on the last day of shooting Weird Science. Robert Downey Jr. actually drove him to the audition.
Wow. Drugged up Robert Downey Jr. probably.
Yes, very drugged up at that time period. Heather Langenkamp was never asked to come back, and the producers never thought of adding her to the story.
Way to go, losers.
That's 100% the response to that. Mark Patton was the one who insisted to the casting director that he wanted Kim Myers to play the role of Lisa. It was her film debut. She was allegedly cast in the film due to her resemblance to Meryl Streep. Now, I can actually see that. She does have a Meryl Streep look to her face. And it's funny that Mark was the one that picked her, because that goes into the whole beard thing again. You
Yeah.
know, it's like it really does. The school used in this film is also the same school used in The Karate Kid from '84.
Oh, wow.
Joanne Willette is one of the girls seated in the back of the school bus driven by Freddy at the beginning of the film. She appeared in the ABC sitcom Just the 10 of Us, co-starred with Heather Langenkamp.
Oh, yeah.
And Brooke Thies, who was in the fourth film. So basically, you could say Just the 10 of Us was Nightmare on Elm Street Redux, is what it basically amounted to.
Yeah.
They had 3 actresses from different films of the series. Get this. Michael J. Fox was considered for the role of Jesse.
I mean,
unable.
Oh, God, sorry.
But he was unable to do his commitments between Back to the Future and Teen Wolf at the same year.
I mean, I could see it, and I think he could play. I think he would have been able to play up the gayness pretty well. And there's nothing more that gay people love than gay for pay.
You think that he would have? I think that it wouldn't have been. I mean, it wouldn't have stood out as much if it'd been from him, though. Like, I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's good that it was from an actual gay actor.
Yeah.
Ultimately, anyways.
Yeah. Brad Pitt, John Stamos, and Christian Slater all auditioned for the role of Jesse. John Stamos ended up playing a character named Jesse in the TV show Full House and
Uncle
Fuller House
Jesse.
later on.
You know, they would have been too masculine. And they would not have been able to pull off the Ned Flanders scream.
For sure, none of them would have. I don't even know. I don't think Michael J. Fox could have, to be honest, when it came to that.
Yeah.
So, Jesse has a hat and a separate green and red sweater in his closet, a reference to the fact that Freddy Krueger is possessing his body while he's sleeping.
Oh, my God.
Sidney Walsh was set to leave Los Angeles after several failed attempts to start an acting career. This changed after she landed the role of Carrie in this.
Nice.
Robert Shea wanted to play the character of Mr. Grady, but was convinced not to by the director. The 2 leads were born on the same day before and after Valentine's Day.
Wow.
That's kind of cool. Robert Shea, at about around 32 minutes, is the S&M bartender in the movie.
Yeah.
Wes Craven refused to work on this film because he never wanted or intended for Nightmare on Elm Street to have a sequel, and even wanted the first film to have a happy ending, as we said. He also didn't like the idea of Freddy manipulating his protagonist into committing the murders.
Shut up.
Freddy is only on screen for 13 minutes in this movie.
Oh, that's double the time.
Double the time from the first one.
Yep.
The sequence where Freddy terrorizes the pool party was viewed by the cast, crew, and many fans as the most nonsensical part of the movie. It was believed that it broke the rules set forth by Wes Craven in the first film, namely because Freddy was attacking people while they were awake.
100%.
This is the only film in the series where he kills each of his victims outside of their dreams.
Boo.
As Jesse transforms into Freddy, we see a quick shot of Freddy's eye staring out of Jesse's open mouth. To accomplish this shot, effects artists made a dummy of Mark Patton's head with a hole for Freddy's eye to look through. They then affixed this prop to a flat surface and had someone put their head into the opening. The only person whose head would fit was the girlfriend of special effects designer Kevin Yeager. It was the only time in the series that Freddy is portrayed by a woman, not counting the times he pretended to be other people in the dream world.
That's hella funny.
The scene where the possessed parakeet with the possessed parakeet was based on the film The Birds. Clu Gulager had his eye injured during the filming of the scene, and producers later regretted even putting in the movie as it was too goofy. And I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I to me it served a purpose, but if not everybody gets it, and I don't know, it's not like it was super necessary.
Robert Ressler, who portrayed Grady, revealed when he watched the film in theaters with his dad, he glanced over during the character's death scene when he was banging on the door and yelled for his father's help, and his real dad was crying.
Oh, that's pretty effective.
Yeah, that actually, when I was rewatching, I'd already read this, and when I was rewatching the scene, I kind of felt bad during that scene because, I mean, it's bad enough in the movie because he's begging for his dad to help him, and but then to know in real life his own dad actually cried at that scene was. The film is the first time showing Freddy Krueger when he's amassed enough power, having the ability to warp or control reality. This is when he's not completely in the dream world and he's able to go into the real world by by possessing someone and or through mass influence stemming from the fear of him. Notably, during the final confrontation, when Lisa goes to the abandoned factory to save Jesse, she's constantly being bombarded with frightening images and put in a perilous situation that isn't real.
Yeah.
And in the film's original script, Lisa was possessed by Freddy and ended up attacking Jesse at the end of the film. However, it was changed where Jesse and Lisa's friend would end up being presumably killed by Freddy while sitting in between them on the bus with their fates unknown.
Yeah. I liked the ending.
Yeah, the ending was pretty good and then it harkened back to the first film where it's like, again, the kids are being, like driven off by Freddy, this time in a physical sense, as opposed to him being in the car, and then you don't know what happens to him.
Yeah.
Death Holler Awards. What do we think about Jesse Walsh as one of the primary final boys in any slasher series?
I mean, he gets 2 awards at minimum in this, and that's obviously the final girl and the best scream.
He's got the best scream of any final girl
ever.
Period.
Yeah, period. I mean, like the ultimate, like I need an applause button because Jesse, you win.
He fits the trope pretty well, like we've discussed earlier. I mean, he's, the one thing that they mentioned it's weird. The reason that they mentioned this during the documentary, the reason that final boys are not a thing is because if you go back and you look at the context of what a final girl is, it's like they're vulnerable, obviously physically to, whoever's attacking them, more so than a guy would be. And then also there is a little bit of subtext there where they usually take out the killer with some kind of phallic symbol, a knife or something that stabs into the body, that sort of thing. And they said it's hard to sell that when, a guy already, it's like they're taking the phallic symbol onto themselves and then using it against the killer, whereas like a guy already has that. So like you're losing that whole subtext. But I think that one thing that to Mark Patton's credit is that he makes, I don't know, because where he's gay, he was actually gay or whatever, he's got that vulnerability to him that he sells that role,
Yeah.
Whereas you don't get that from like somebody say like, Bruce Campbell, who's, he's a manly man, like even.
Exactly. Well, I want to say too, I think that in this particular, making Freddy kind of, I guess we're going on to slasher where you have closeted Freddy. He's closeted Freddy. I kind of need to scooch into that a little bit because I want to talk about how, clearly lots of gay, not even undertones in this film. We'll say overtones in this film. They're clearly there. And that's fine. This movie, totally acceptable for that. And I'm, look, you got a gay community that has a film that represents them in the horror slasher genre. Awesome. I think later on, though, the fact that it's kind of damning that they made Freddy Krueger in later films an actual child predator, because it's one thing for Freddy to go after on the brink adult teenagers. Literally, I mean, they could be 18 years old for all we know. They're older teens,
Yes.
And still creepy in its own right, whatever. But it's not children versus they made him a pedo. And not only that, but we also know that Freddy now he'll go for anything, He's a bi Freddy. We can't even say he's a gay Freddy, No,
because his whole thing in this movie and in part 3 is that he's very overly sexual in his overtones toward the females in the movie, and then, like in this one, it's the complete opposite. He's really like laying that on, we'll say bi Freddy, but at the end of the day, technically in this film, it's gay Freddy, and then later on you have a pedo Freddy, and it's like, well, that's kind of, you're damning the fact that gays have mostly pedo tendencies, and that's not true, I guess the flamboyant ones do, the really out there ones, aren't afraid to say it, which is insane, Yeah.
But I think that's kind of a little damning, but it is what it is. I know they probably didn't intend that, but who the fuck knows? I don't think they should have ever made Freddy a pedo type character.
I think that was, I think most people agree that's one of the worst decisions they made for the remake whenever they were going that route, because even if you wanted to try to make people accept Jackie Earle Haley as a new one, you're never going to do that with a pedo. There are pedos, prisoners don't have a lot of, morals or ethics, but that's the one that they do when the pedo was like introduced to a prison. they're generally shanked within days of being,
Yeah.
once they find out that's what they've done, the prisoners will do that.
Yeah.
Best kill in the movie for me was probably Coach Schneider because the fucker deserved it.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, it's not the. I mean, he's literally just slashed across the back.
Yeah,
and there's that whole thing, getting claws raked down your back while you're turned around in a submissive, like tied up in a BDSM situation. That's a whole subtext on its own. But
yeah, getting slapped in the butt by a rolled up wet towel.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So funny.
But of all the people in the movie, because I mean, he represents something to the gay community too, in the sense that he is the alpha or the quote unquote alpha male that harasses, gays in the daylight, but then at night is, is closeted himself,
Yeah.
It's its own subtype or whatever. We've already covered Best Scream. I think Jesse probably gets Best Scream for everything we do from here on out. Like when I heard that scream, I'm like, God damn, that's a scream. Like there's no better scream than that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Best Freddy quote: "Help yourself, fucker." That's what he says to the guy who's like comes up and is like, "Can I help you?"
Yeah.
We need,
I mean, I liked "You've got the body and I've got the brains," no matter what the tones were.
I would have included that, but I just like how he delivered it. It's just like, I mean, that's the one part in the movie where it's like closer to the Freddy we know. Like,
yeah.
Best side character Ron, like he's pretty good in this. Serves multiple purposes, comic relief, but I mean, he really is like the character that Jesse wants to come out to. Like, he really is that
come
that
out
person.
to and get into.
Well, well, he actually does because he stabs the gloved fist, so there's subtext there,
Oh
yeah. Best boobs, Coach Schneider. I mean, I can't really. I mean, like I was sitting there thinking about it. If we're gonna, go into the gay subtext of the movie, I mean, he is the one that is. I mean, in that scene where he gets his back slashed open, they're out there in full display. Like those moves that he's got going for him. So, and that hot shower. I mean, it's about as close as you can get to the inversion of the trope.
Yeah.
You want to throw it in there for best ass? Like, which one do you want to throw in there for that?
Well, I wouldn't want to say best ass. We just got like a lot of gay butts showing, but I'd have to say Jesse's. I think it was a little more fuller,
All right, there you go. How annoying is the Doom Prophet? I don't really. Jesse's the only one in the movie that like it keeps trying to tell people like there's something wrong with me, like
Yeah.
But we've already talked about there's the subtext there and that whole thing too. Is there anybody else in the movie you can think of that actually serves even remotely close to a Doom Prophet in this one?
Yeah, Lisa, kind of, because she's reading the book and or not the book, but the diary, and she's like, oh, I think it's this, I think it's that. And I guess she's not really being the Doom Prophet, but she's trying to...
she's being the beard.
Yeah, she's being the beard, and she's trying to stop the gayness. So, kind of her.
Okay, I could see that. Although, like I said, I think Jesse like trying in his own weird way to like come out is like the Doom Prophet in the movie. He keeps telling people he's like, it's not right. Like I need help, and like everybody's just like, there's nothing wrong with you. Bury that shit. Don't mention it ever again.
Yeah.
Dumbest moment to me, and this might be just due to the fact of Freddy warping reality, but Rod in real life not being able to open that fucking door. Like I don't understand. Like the only context I guess would be that Freddy like locked it, when he was like coming out of Jesse at that point. But like there's no real reason why he shouldn't be able to get out of that room before he got stabbed.
Yeah, that's true. Because I can't really think of another dumb moment. I mean, one could argue, but it's not even a main character. The kids looking like they're falling into the boiling pool, but they're actually diving into it after they just got out of it, causing them issues where they were dying to stay away from it. Oh
yeah, there is that scene. It's like it's almost like that I've fallen and I can't get up commercial, like how cheesy it is. It's like, oh shit, like just kind of like falling right back into it.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. But yeah, that was pretty That was just, those are, like I said, just throwaway characters, so it really doesn't matter. Nobody cared that they fell in the pool, but I was like, what the fuck are you guys doing?
They didn't have names. They didn't really have faces. I mean, and they didn't have them after they were melted off. But but I mean, it was yeah, they were just fodder. Is all they were at that point in the movie.
I mean, there's an award that we have to add because we don't always. I mean, Best Boobs is one of the slasher awards that we have, but we don't always get to hand out that award because there's not always boobs. But we need to have a good boy award, you know, because we're getting a lot of good boys in these movies, and we have two very good boys at the end of this movie that do not belong in this movie whatsoever, but they're there.
The cherub-faced demon dogs?
Yes, the two little devil dogs. I don't know what their names are. We'll call them Wes and who else?
Wes and Sean.
And Sean, there we go. Little Wes and Sean, the two goodest boys in the film. They were there. They were scary, but they did not attack Lisa, so...
I think that yeah, I agree. We'll give that to them because I think that's just hilarious that they're even in the movie. So
yeah,
there's
and
that.
When you look them up on the internet, which is why I could not find names, because yes, I did look up the two good boys. Nobody knows why they're there. They're like, this is the weirdest shit, and it is because I felt bad for the dogs. So I'm like, these poor little fuckers want that mask off of their face.
I'm waiting for part 4 whenever a dog literally brings Freddy back by pissing on his grave, and then see if you give him the good boy award, or if that's the bad boy needs to have his nose rubbed in an award for that one.
It was an accident.
Are you ready to move on to the final movie in this first segment?
Yes, let's move on to the final of this portion.
And was originally meant to be the final of the series, to be honest.
Aren't they always?
Well, yeah, but this one in particular.